All right. Today, I want to talk a little bit about community for internal audit leaders. And that word community means something specific that I'm going to talk about today. Okay. And why am I talking about this? Because I want to kind of set the stage for it. And, technology is kind of replacing a lot of human connection in our world, which can be good, it can be bad, it can be ugly. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that because I think, sometimes people, look at social media, look at, online discussion groups, collectives, whatever the word is that may be used. But it's effectively a technology platform that is kind of allowing people to interact in a way, but it's not real human interaction like most of us actually need. Okay. And so I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about that and show how, what real community is for audit leaders, for those of you that are actually looking for real community. And when I mean community, I'm meaning a deeper relationship, where you can actually talk with other people. You know, there's lots of things that kind of go on. You're probably watching this on some social media platform right now. So, you're familiar with things like groups, right? I mean, I have some groups that have thousands and thousands of people in them. But what's interesting about the groups on social media, and this is true for things like online forums and other things, there's no direct one-to-one live interaction in those areas. And a lot of people don't actually participate. Uh, which again is interesting to me, because some people have lots of groups that they belong to. And so I kind of want to ask you a question, right? You probably belong to certain social media groups. And you may have interactions with some of the people who are in those groups. You may comment on each other's posts. You may, kind of dialogue back and forth, but are they actually friends? Do you actually feel a sense of community with those people? And the answer is probably no, right? And for the people that you do feel more of a connection to, what's different about it? Well, one of the things that's probably different is most likely you took your conversations offline, outside of the group. Maybe you were direct texting each other in Messenger, talking on the phone, doing other things like that, because that's how real human connection actually occurs, is talking with people. you know People on social media that are quote unquote your friends, are they really friends? Do you actually sit down with them and have dinner with them? Do you chat on the phone with them? Probably not, right? And why I'm bringing this up is, we all desire and need some human connection. And I'm going to share some examples here, that kind of go into this, because I know that there is a big trap, if you will, that a lot of times we think, oh, it's technology, it's a platform, it's cool. I want to be where all the cool kids are. And that's fine if that's what you want, but you have to start asking your questions about, am I really getting my questions answered? Am I really being heard? Right? Am I really developing connections and relationships with other people? And the odds are your answer is probably no to a lot of those questions. And so I want to talk about how specifically audit leaders, but this is in general, right? So even if you're not an audit leader, some of the things that I'll talk about are relevant for any human connection, human relationship that you have. Okay. So the first example is yesterday, I needed to take care of some things on my QuickBooks Online account. And so it's a technology platform, that's kind of self serve. I can go out, make changes to settings, do other things like that. and really kind of handle most of the things on my own. But there was some changes that I needed to make in the program, and the program wouldn't allow me to make those changes, which I thought was a little weird, but whatever, right? And so when I try to make the changes, it said, well, you have to call our customer support line. And so I called the customer support line. And of course, instead of a human being coming on, I got an automated account representative. I think that's what they called themselves. And, they asked me a few questions and let me know that, this was based on generative AI, that they were going to help me. Woo, that sounds so cool, right? And so I told the automated representative what I needed help with. And of course, it thought there, it churned, it looked up some data in the background, and it gave me an answer that had nothing to do with what I was actually asking about. Now, that happens quite a bit, right? And eventually I had to, end up saying, no, that's not what I need. And they put me in touch with a human that I could actually talk to one-on-one, live, back and forth, direct information. Because what ends up happening a lot of times, especially in technology platforms, even the fancy AI stuff, it misunderstands what we're actually asking about. Or you can see, I do this as an example. A lot of us use the internet to get questions answered for us. Hey, my dishwasher doesn't work. I need to fix it. Hey, whatever the question might be. And so we go out on a technology platform and we do a search in Google or whatever search engine you may be using, and it brings back results for us. And as we read through it, how many times are the answers that it's giving you or the websites that it's taking you to, they don't really address, right, your particular context. I can't remember, there was something I was searching for last week. It didn't matter how I asked the question, I was not getting the answer that I needed. And it would have been so nice to just be able to pick up the phone, talk to somebody live, explain my situation, and then get advice and answers from them based on my particular context, right? Now, I'm not saying technology is bad. I use technology every day. But most of the time, it can't give us exactly what we're looking for. It may give us good information, right? It may not be nuanced to what we're actually looking for, but we don't develop a connection or a relationship with that technology either. And so another example, I belong to a group of people. We have a Viber chat where we send each other texts and voice messages back and forth, kind of explaining what we're doing, what's going on, asking questions of people in the group. And it's a great platform, for what we do, but there is a delay, right? Somebody might go out there, post something a few days later before you get a response back, right? And so one of my friends sent me several voice messages yesterday, kind of sharing some information and kind of asking me some questions. And so I listened to it and thought about it for a little while. And when I finished work for the day, I responded back really quick. Hey, here's a quick answer to this, right? Because things like messaging, comments in groups, online forums, things like that, is great for some quick things where you can just type something out. But I knew I needed to leave her a voice message because I needed to explain myself in more detail and answer more of the questions that she had that I couldn't just do in a text, right? And so my intention was, I finished work for the day, and so my plan was to record a voice message to her. Probably would have been 5-6 minutes, something like that. But before I did that, I sent her a quick message and said, hey, here's an answer to this one, voice message coming soon. And as soon as I sent it, she liked the message and she responded right back to me, which let me know that she was available at that time. She was actually, in front of her phone, responding to my message. And so I just sent back and said, hey, are you open to have a call tonight instead? I was getting ready to send you the message, but we can just talk instead. And she's like, that's great. So, a couple minutes later, I called her and we talked for about an hour. Now, was that discussion that we had more valuable than a 5-minute voice message? Yes. It allowed us to deepen our relationship, to talk about maybe some other things that would not have been talked about just in the voice message, right? And there's something about actually talking to another human being, right, that is different than anything else that we can have. This same group that I belong to, where we send the messages back and forth to each other. We also physically get together in person a few times a year. Now, why do we do that? Because we can communicate, we can deepen our relationships, we can have much more rich and robust discussions when we're actually talking to each other in person than we ever could on a technology platform. And that's kind of one of the points that I'm trying to bring up here is that, especially for a lot of us, social media or an online discussion group, it helps, but it's not everything that we need, right? Sometimes we need to talk to other people. Okay. And so I'll give you some other examples. And again, kind of tie this back into audit leaders and community from that standpoint. Is, I regularly coach people who are audit leaders. Now, that are in parts of programs like the Audit Leader Forum that I have. And there we actually get on Zoom and we talk for a half an hour, right? Now there's a lot more value in actually talking with another human being for a half an hour than there is just for a message. And I'll give you some examples, right? Is often people reach out to me on social media and they ask me questions. Okay. Now, some questions I can respond to quickly in just a sentence on maybe a comment on a post or on a direct message to people. But there's some questions that I really can't answer unless I have more of the context, unless I understand more of what's going on, because I don't want to give somebody an answer that doesn't make sense to them. I don't want to be the AI digital assistant, whatever, that gives you some bullshit answer. I want to actually give you an answer that is tailored to your specific situation, right? I don't want you to have to ask a question in a discussion group and not really find the answer that you're looking for. Now, again, sometimes people reach out. I had somebody reach out this week who wanted some mentoring. They were looking at getting into internal audit and they wanted some mentoring. They were asking me specifically about a certain certification. And so I responded back what I could, which said, I do paid mentoring. If you'd like to talk, we can do that. But I really can't mentor someone by just sending them text messages back and forth. That doesn't work, right? Because a lot of times things are lost in communication, things are lost in translation. I may use a certain word, someone may use a certain word, and I don't know what they mean, right? Maybe it could mean lots of different things. And so I may have clarifying questions or other things like that. And I had, as an example, an audit leader that I was talking to last week that, signed up and talked to me. We had a half-hour call. And he was looking at ways to kind of improve his career, look at some things that he could maybe do different. Now, he could have gone online and he could have done a Google search. and found the 10 things that you should do to be a successful audit leader, or the 10 things that you should do to get promoted. And those are just generic things that people put out there. And some of the information may have been relevant to him, some of it may not have been relevant to him, right? But what was relevant was us actually sitting down and talking for a half an hour, me asking him some clarifying questions, even some things that he hadn't thought about, right? Because, a lot of times we want answers, but we haven't actually thought through the whole process. And sometimes that's where talking to a friend, talking to a peer, talking to me helps us to uncover some of those blind spots that we may have. Because we may be thinking that we really have this question and we need this specific answer, but most of the time we're not asking the right question. And when we actually find out what the right question is, but that comes from dialogue, right? That comes from dialogue. Then we can really get an answer that is applicable to us, right? Because each communication method is good for certain things. If I'm going to the store and I text my friend and say, "Hey, I'm going to the store. Do you need anything while I'm there?" Well, that's easy for my friend to respond back and say, "Yeah, can you pick up bananas and milk?" Okay. And that works just fine for some simple things like that. But, if I'm developing a relationship with my friend, would I do it all through messaging? Would I do it all through voice messages that I send to them? That's not how you actually develop a relationship. You have to actually sit down and talk. And sometimes you never know where the conversation is going to go. And so, as I said, it's important for us to have these human interactions. There's lots of places that you can go to that will, give you a blog post, that will give you an article, that will, give you, comments on social media that people are going to. And that's fine. That may give you some good information. But you may be one of those people like me who actually likes to talk to people. And especially as an audit leader, you may be sitting here and looking at it and saying, well, where do I go? Right? Because a lot of the things that are out there, a lot of the resources for audit leaders are things like social media platforms. Again, there's some good information there, but it usually lacks some of the information that people really need, right? There's newsletters that you can subscribe to. And again, you may get some good information from some of those emails, but it may or may not actually, fit with your particular context. You may have some questions that you'd like to understand how other people dealt with it. Well, actually talking to other people is the way to really get the answers to that. And so if you're one of those people and you're sitting there thinking, well, how do I get this true community? Well, one of the ways is the Audit Leader Forum, right? One of the things that is different is we actually have live interactive calls monthly. In fact, depending on the membership level you are, there's 2 of them a month. There's opportunities to talk to other coaches, peers, mentors, other people like that. So you can actually get your questions answered. And you can start developing relationships with other people. You can actually joke with other people. You can have a good time, right? You can talk about what's going on. You just can't get that in some of the online groups, right? That are just messages back and forth. So, why I'm talking about this, again, one of the things that I hear most often from audit leaders is they feel like they're on an island. They feel like they're alone. They feel like they can't get answers to their specific situation. And I have to be honest with you, belonging to a LinkedIn group, belonging to a Facebook group, belonging to an online discussion group, that still keeps you feeling lonely and isolated because you're not having direct human interaction, right? If you want to stop feeling alone, you have to be with other people. And this is one of the ways that you can do it, right? So, regardless of who you are, of what your position may be, having more human interaction, actually talking with other people, is how community is actually developed. It's how we actually develop friendships. It's how we can talk and be listened to. How we can help other people as well by sharing our knowledge and our experience with them. That's what I was doing with my friend. She had some questions and I was just answering, questions that she had based on my own experience. Right. And again, she can take it or leave it, but I didn't give her a 10-point list of things she had to do. She could have Googled that. Right. Um, so anyway, as I said, I've kind of gone on with this, but wanted to talk because I know sometimes technology can be so appealing, and we think technology is going to save us and it's going to make everything so easy. And sometimes it does. But other times it actually causes us more work, causes us more confusion, because we're reading things that don't necessarily apply to us. Now, I'll give you kind of a funny thing, but it's not a funny thing. And I've experienced this, and I've known other people who have experienced this too. Sometimes we may have, for example, physical ailments that we're concerned about. Oh, my stomach is hurting, or oh, my head is doing this, or whatever, right? And so a lot of times we'll go out and we'll use a technology platform, the internet, and we'll start doing some searches. We'll ask some questions. And inevitably, and there's kind of a joke about this, but if you go out onto the internet and you ask certain health related questions and you start digging deeper and you start reading all of the things that are there, by the time that you're done after an hour of doing that, you're going to go, oh my God, I have cancer. Okay. Well, you probably don't have cancer. It's something else that's going on. But if you just listen to the things that are being said out on the internet, on social media, in online groups, you're probably not going to get the right answer. Instead of spending an hour, right, trying to do internet searches, what if you actually sat down with a doctor and for a half an hour you talked to this doctor about what you were experiencing? At the end of the day, do you think you're going to get a better answer than all of your Google searching that you can do? The answer is probably yes. So the same is true for you in whatever question you may have, right? You're going to get a better answer by talking to someone and actually get the situation fixed, right? Just like my QuickBooks thing. I couldn't fix it. I did some searching, online to try to see how, why it's not letting me do this. But ultimately, the only way for me to really get the answer and fix the issue was to talk to a human being, right? And so if you're an audit leader who is also looking that way and saying, you know what, I just really want to talk to somebody. I don't want to just go to a group. I don't want to just scroll through, random shit in a discussion board that most of it doesn't actually relate to me. I just actually want to talk to a peer. I want to talk to somebody who's been there and done that. Well, if you're that kind of an audit leader, then the Audit Leader Forum is something that you should consider, right? And again, not telling you that it's right for you or trying to convince you that you need to do it, but there's a link to it here, with this video. So go check it out. If you're that kind of person and it resonates with you, then sign up and join us each month, where we actually have these live discussions with other human beings, which is really kind of lacking, especially in the internal audit leadership space. So with that, I'm going to sign off for today. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the next video.